Good morning and welcome to Frontiers of Knowledge segment of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Yesterday, it was late night and we were having a discussion. And one friend said, that, look at Dr. Lamba, when you talk of knowledge, why is it that you concentrate on new inventions, new discoveries, advancements, but then removing the cobwebs of information is equally important? Prior to that, we had been discussing about Shashi Tharoor and his criticism of the British Empire, as well as of Afusa Hirsch, who wrote recently in New York Times, only this week. And I was discussing about that. I said, how one-sided Shashi Tharoor and Hirsch are. And then they said, why? And I told them it's because the people don't have knowledge and even they don't have the knowledge. So this friend remarked, why don't you remove the cobwebs? So here I am today to talk about something which would be a revelation to you. You remember our ancestors, forefathers always used to say the British Raj was better. Was it really better? Or was it mere plunder, looting, rape, lawlessness, exploitation, as advocated by Shashi Tharoor and Afafu Hash? I don't deny that colonization was, in fact, exploitation, but not to the extent they have been talking about. And the British Empire, which came into limelight recently because of Prince Harry and Merkel's revolt, has been a target of criticism for right reasons, but mostly for wrong reasons. We always are in the habit of going to the extremes without evaluating. And Shashi Tharoor and Hirsch are a good example of that. As a matter of fact, it is an innate hatred and a reaction. And then it is a pose, pose to tell people that we care. A politician or a journalist is more concerned with what people would think of him, her, or their writing. A seeker for truth doesn't care for the opinion of the people. He seeks to present the truth, the facts, the reality. And that's why I can afford to do that. As a matter of fact, if you look at the global construct, I'll call it, they say it's based on white supremacy. I don't think so. There have been empires before that, Ottoman Empire. It was not based on supremacy. The empires are established by Mongols, not on the white supremacy. So why is it that we call British Empire, like Hirsch says, intrinsically racist, and the source of the abhorrence for the people of color is this empire? Can anything be farther from the truth? This corrupt view is nothing new. For many years now, slandering the British Empire has been the sport of countless scholars who are in fact pseudo intellectuals, not real intellectuals. They are driven by hate, utter hatred, a obsessive hatred to the extent that they will suppress the reality. It's a one-dimensional view of things, and they forget that their tweets, their writing, their broadcasts are essentially propagating ignorance. The view that the empire was evil beyond pale is so widely accepted that many find it treacherous to their reputation and carriers to defend it, but not me. The legacy of the British Empire, like every empire, every civilization, race, and tribe, has its black spots. I won't deny that. But show me a single rule, whether it's a self rule or whether it is ruled by the outsider, which is free from the black spots. You won't find a single rule anywhere in the word from the beginning of the word. Not that I'm praising it, but look at the historical context and you would find that historically empires have been there because of inherent weaknesses of the conquered. The story of human life, we forget, is essentially the story of evil that is in the nature of all human beings. As Hobbes says, man's life is nasty, brutish, short. So, this story of civilization is a story of competition, conflict, subjugation, exploitation, violence, murder. And it's this inherent selfish nature, not only of the British Empire, but of all empires, that ultimate causes all the problems. The fact is that evil is endemic to human existence. I don't say it condones the ugly behavior. Their behavior was absolutely ugly as far as the Boer War was concerned, as Jallianwala Bagh was concerned. But the flaws were entirely unexceptional compared to the other empires. Pax Britannica was quite exemplary. Now compare them with the Portuguese or with the French. The French ruled, exploited, and then didn't do anything for the people. And as you would find later on, just now, British did a lot for the people, meaning that the character of an empire is, by reflecting on the mistakes alone, that confirms one thing definitely, that empire was comprised of the human beings who have some defects, some evils. But the more accurate judgment should be based on the quality for its fruits, to the extent and the importance of the contribution to the people it ruled and to the human civilization. By this score, British Empire is unrivaled. First, let's take up the global trade and commerce. Today, we take for granted global trade. No nation has done more for free trade than British Empire did. In the 18th and the 19th century, thanks to the Industrial Revolution, rapid economic growth, industrial growth, England was able to promote trade, things coming from the colonies, the raw material, even I don't deny that. Here, something bad also happened. For example, they annihilated the fine textile industry of India. But then, are the people not doing it nowadays? Again, I'm not justifying the British Empire, but saying that it was not unmitigated evil. And there was insatiable demand for raw material, and that raw material was not being used by the colonies. So they made a proper use of the resource for the good of their own and for the people as well. And the colonized people responded positively, eagerly. They worked harder, faster, building, sewing, digging to sell their products. The purpose was to share the British wealth. And as the England demand grew, the colonies and the trade increased. Do you know that between 1750 and 1914, the First World War, the total value of global trade increased fivefold? Imagine it. During the 80s alone, 1700 to 1899. Global shipping tonnage grew from 4 million to 30 million tons, and primarily because of the British Empire. When piracy became a problem, it was the British Navy which fought it. When the new laws were to be made and policies were needed for free trade, it was the British lawyers or the lawyers educated in Lincoln Inn who did the job. They say, now here is something which Shashi Tharoor and Harsh say, that this trade was there but did not benefit the poor nations. It resulted in their exploitation. Absolutely bullshit. Consider, I'll take one example of Zambia today. And Zambia is quoted as a sick state, poor state by everybody. If you look at the economic history, Zambia's domestic product today per capita is 1/20th of Britain, 1/28th. Shocking. But 1955, when Zambia became free and it was being ruled by the British till that time, it was 1/4 of the Britain. So the fall from 1/4 to 1/28 is when the country became free and not when it was a colony of the British Empire. Can anything be more shocking? How do we say that they suffered? Look at India. Handloom suffered, artists suffered, but those pieces of raw material which were not being exploited were exploited. People become more immune, exposed to industrial concepts, education, law, jurisprudence, everything. And then, British imperial rule, London was the world central bank. And naturally, like a bank, it was controlling it. But then, flow of goods into England is half the history. The other half is that the hundreds of millions of the English pounds were reaching the foreign shores and filling the pockets of the local farmers, traders, shop owners, and bankers, greasing the wheels of the colonial economies. And what's wrong with that? Those economies are gaining. In India, now let me give you some thought. It was the jewel of the empire, but it was constantly plagued by famines. Constantly. People only talk of the Bengal famine where 2 million people died. But look at the agriculture production that exploded during the British Raj. Between 1891 to 1938, the area of irrigated land doubled. The British built 40,000 miles, that's almost 60,000 kilometers of railway track in India. They built postal and telegraph system. Millions were employed, and the British rule, and this is not me who is saying, I'm quoting from Pithankar Roy in his book Economic History of India. He says that the Britishers did much more for Indian economy than all the preceding rulers had done it, whether it was Mughals or whether it was Khiljis or whether it was Lodhis, slave dynasty, and before that Harsh, Kanishka, and others. All of them combined did not do that much for the Indian economy and the Indian agriculture and the Indian infrastructure what the British did between 1857 to 1947. 200 years. That's it. Another 100 years. 100 years of rule. And they changed the face of India. Yes, they had their own axe to grind. I don't deny it. But still, India gained. The same occurred in Africa, in Caribbean. And as the empire expanded, British English bankers, engineers, architects, they started building there. Infrastructure was built, investment was there in time, investment was there in money. If you see the railways, the ports, the major irrigation systems, the telegraph, sanitation, Medicare, universities, postal system, courts of law, these are the base of the Indian progress today. And they were there because of the Britishers that did it. And we say that the Green Revolution really started when the British built the canal system in Punjab. The great canal system, the whole land was gridlocked with canals. And that made Punjab the granary of India and, in fact, of the world. Beyond the material construction, they did a lot many things. They brought the concept of a nation in India. India was never a nation. There were 600 countries in India, independent nations, fighting each other. They brought the concept, though it was harmful for them, but then the education that they brought, the revolutionary thought that they brought, and the educational system they brought, though it was meant to produce clerks, as is usually said, Macaulay's system, but it gave ideas to the students being taught. And the bug of nationalism, patriotism, feeling for the country developed. That itself is the largest contribution to the growth of any nation. Most important, rule of law was established. Earlier what was there was no law, no codified law. Whatever the king said, that was final, off with his head. No due process of law. It was the Britishers who established that due process of law, the rule of law, the political and social stability. And that superior system has been exported to all over the world. The brutal tribal laws and rituals were civilized. Do you think Aurangzeb would have ever removed the tradition of sati? Never. Do you think any Hindu king would have removed the tradition of sati? No. It was the Britishers who did it, on the prodding of Raja Ram Mohan Rai, of course. Then, British Empire also played a key role in protecting the world from the tyrants. Their fight with Napoleon, with Russia, Crimea War, way back, destroying Hitler and Mussolini and Tojo. As a matter of fact, March under Pax Britannica was a century of the comparative peace. And single-handedly, it stopped the march of tyranny everywhere. As a matter of fact, I agree with Neil Ferguson when he says that the British Empire more than justified its existence, for the alternatives of the British rule, represented by the Germans and the Japanese, was far worse. And the world would not have been able to understand them. Look how the Koreans were mistreated by the Japanese. Japanese rule was the most brutal and unacceptable. Compared to that, the British rule in India, barring the examples of Jallianwala Bagh and a few others, was a real game changer than the issue of slavery. We say that Britain started the slave trade, but they neglect that Britain was the only country which unilaterally destroyed the system of slavery and implemented it, and it was a key component of the colonial power to have human laws. And that's why when they established the rule of law system, the judiciary system, people in India used to say, well, here the justice prevails. People used to say that in this country there can be no injustice because they were comparing it with the tribal laws and the laws of the rulers, the kings, and their henchmen, their minions. So, if you measure the British imperialism by the contribution they made to the development of the colonies, there's no parallel. It provided good government, mostly honest and uncorrupt public administration. It brought peace in the tribes which were warring with each other, rule of law, famine relief. Before that, famines used to take place, but nobody will talk of them. We talk of the Bengal famine thanks to the media nurtured by the British. Otherwise, who would have known that there is a famine in Bengal? There are famines before that and of a much larger scale. I'm not condoning that famine. Britain could have done much more, which it did not. But the abolition of the barbaric customs, the upliftment of the people, they were great. The fact remains, nobody can deny that if you study the history, no other country has done so much to promote free treatment, movement of the goods, capital and labor than the British Empire did in 19th and the 20th century. As a matter of fact, it's intriguing how England, a tiny nation, a very small nation, could rule the world. Do you think if they ruled the world and established an empire where the sun never sets, it was a God given gift? No. It was because of their akuna, their honesty, and their ambitious things, and the stupidity of the people who were colonized, the greed of the people who were colonized. So blame, if any, should come to the people who were colonized than the people who colonized them, because in the process of colonizing, they humanized them, made them live, think like human beings. So clean your brain of the cobwebs and see the world as it is today. Criticize them. They are guilty of many crimes. They deserve to be condemned. No country has the right to rule over the other. But if it's benign and helpful, then it can be condoned. It can be accepted. At least not give them absolutely negative marks. Treat and accept the good that they have done, along with bad they have done. Condemn for them for the wrong they have done, and praise them for the good they have done. That way lies balance, and that way lies the capability to accept the reality without prejudice, without fear, without favor. Thank you.